It be like that sometimes. It be like that sometimes. All right, bear with me.
All right.
And here we go. Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports as Ordered. And I'm glad y'all didn't have to pay pay-per-view to watch Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. I'm so happy for you. You know what I'm saying? Bad news, Cleveland. The Cavs lost their first game tonight.
Good run.
You know, it is I, 2-5, your unorthodox statistician, going left so much you thought I was southpaw. Left to the point that Jake Paul wouldn't see what was coming. And I got with me the one and only, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He wants to know, how come Rutgers has two of the top freshman basketball players this season and they ain't being talked about? He is Mr. Logic. Don't bring feelings to a fact fight. Do us a favor, though. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Do all the free things. Do all the good things. And of course, we're going to get this started with Get It Off My Chest right about now.
Yeah. You know how it is. Another show, another week. Get off my chest. Yeah, I got something simple, man. I'm sick of y'all just hating in these comments. It pisses me off. Like, I sent Mike a video earlier today. It just said, this is what it looks like when a 6'3", 200-pound wrestler plays running back. So white kid, I'm thinking probably somewhere in the Midwest, Minnesota, North Dakota, something like that. Not a big school, but he just was running the ball, scoring touchdowns, making plays. You know, just a simple highlight clip from one of his, Friday Night Light games. He wasn't a big showboater. He scores touchdown, get a ball to the referee, high five his teammates, chest bump, helmet taps, go to the bench. So I was like, I gotta go to the comments. I go to the comments. It was a lot of, glad he's not showboating like those monkeys in Colorado, shit like that. Just like, so you click on that profile and you know what kind of pictures and anti-communism posts and stuff like that.
Indeed,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I like to find that funny. It's maybe I'm kind of glutton for pain, but I think it's kind of funny to just kind of like look at the comment, look at the name, look at the little picture. I'm like, I know exactly what this profile looks like. Click on it and be right. But then it was like people posting their old high school photos. Like, I was 6'3", 230 when I was in high school. Nothing to do with you. Oh, he was getting tackled by the first person. Not great balance. Maybe he could play safety or wide receiver. I'm like, what are y'all talking? It was so many scouts, coaches, GMs, team owners, professional athlete developers, so many Hall of Fame players in these comments. No, it just was some regular ass dudes posting screenshots of their high school highlights and like other BS. Was like, yo, just watch the video, give them a thumbs up, give them a like. Don't be out here posting your old pictures and then I go to your page like, yeah, you was 230 in high school. Now you 330 at UPS. Like, cut it out. Like, like just stop what they hate. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary for you to participate in social media by being negative. And I'm thinking maybe it's a bunch of bot farms and they just kind of know my algorithm and I like reading this obnoxious stuff. But if you're really out here digging in the crates, digging for your yearbook, digging for your senior book to find those pictures where you were on the sideline wearing 43 with the neck roll shoulder pads. So if I was a fullback of 6'3", 260 back in my day, won 2 state championships, cut it out. Just stop it. It's the internet. Cut it out. I think Wi-Fi should be applied for, like a loan or like a driver's license or like a tax ID. You should have to like prove why the government should allow you access to this dangerous platform. Some of these people are just not built intellectually, emotionally to utilize it properly. So
Al Bundy 4 touchdowns in one game.
oh my God, it was obnoxious. It was pissing me off so bad.
You know what I'm saying? Polk High. You know what I'm saying? What up, Mike? The One Mike podcast, Mondays and Thursdays. Check it out. Facebook, get your gems, including your black on black news. You know what I'm saying? But get it off my chest. So, my get it off my chest message is simple. Play your games. So, I'm tired of listening to NBA personnel, whether it's former players, whether it's people on TV, talking about, oh my God, this 65 game rule, there's going to be a bunch of bums that are going to get max contracts. There's going to be a bunch of bums on the first team All NBA and so on and so forth, right? Now, check me out. Indulge me for a second. Now, just taking it back to last year because we only got a 1 year sample size.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to throw that out there. I'm not trying to be slick. We just only got 1 year of evidence. So looking at the first team from last year, Giannis, Luka, SGA, Jokic, Jason Tatum. That don't sound crazy to me. And then you look at the second team, right? Jalen Brunson, Anthony Davis, KD, Anthony Edwards, Kawhi. Ooh, what bums they are, right? And then you got the third team: Devin Booker, Wardell Stephen Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron Raymond James, and DeMontis Sabonis. That don't sound crazy to me. Now, if we get to a point where you're sitting up here going, oh my goodness, we just paid Larry Nance Jr. $39 million a year and he made second team All NBA, now we can have a conversation. If Al Horford is out here making an All NBA team, we can have a conversation. But why did this come to be in the first place? It was because the players weren't playing. But the teams are hustling backwards because usually, a lot of times we learned it was the team's decision why some of these guys didn't play. And last time I checked, Adam Silver works for the owners. So as a wise man once said, don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining.
That was me.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm good with the 65 game rule because people like Joel Embiid, who plays in the Olympics and decides I'm not going to show up for my actual day job, do not deserve to be MVPs, do not deserve to be first team All NBAs. You want to get paid, but you don't want to provide the labor. So until you see somebody that does not deserve an award, shut up.
I agree with that. I think the 65 game rule is just all part of all the money that the NBA is producing because living on the East Coast, LeBron and the Lakers coming here, Madison Square Garden. If I want to get a ticket to that, it's probably $700. If I want to get a good ticket, if I want to get a ticket where I can kind of see, I can see read the jerseys clearly.
Yeah, sitting with the movers and shakers.
I'm gonna need even now with this year, I'm gonna need like $700 per ticket.
Right.
So I agree with that, but also like the conversation is just like it's only like top 20 guys. It's like the superstars. Once you get to like the top 20 players, either scores, assists, whatever, you only got about 6 to 8, maybe 12 real superstars. A lot of guys are just really good, but they're all getting paid. I mean, it's a lot of guys on this list in the NBA. Like I looked at this earlier at work. We were talking about it. So like the top 100, I think Malcolm Brogdon's getting like $22 million.
Mm-hmm.
And he's tied for 97th, in contract. So it's like guys are getting paid. So I think the awards are going to go to the heavy hitters. I think the 65 game rule, teams will figure out ways to where they get their guy to the 65 games.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a young guy, Anthony Edwards already talked about, he's not sitting out. But if you have championship aspirations and people for some reason have, I don't know what the evidence is to support that, because I think Boston played as many games as they could unless they were injured.
Well, the 65 game rule might have derailed a career, because remember, coming out of the play-in tournament last year, Tyrese Halliburton was the new kid on the block that was going to take the league by storm. He got hurt, but he was in that window of, if you don't play these 65 games, you can't get your max. So we talked about it in real time.
He still played in the Olympics where he.
No, I know, but we talked about that was after the fact, but we talked about it in real time. Like, did he come back 2 weeks early just so he can ensure that he played 65 games?
Yeah, but that max contract.
But then he got hurt again in the playoffs too. But
So I'm gonna look it up real quick. I think it's.
But that was the thing.
$44 million. I'll play on a tight hamstring.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. But it's all been downhill since then for him, and he doesn't look nearly the same. And if you remember, he didn't even play in the Olympics really. So so he was there.
He didn't play because Steve Kerr was like, "You good sitting over here?" He's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just here for the French girls." I brought my girls. She brought all her friends. We just riding around in these minivans with 8 blonde white girls. I'm good. I'm chilling.
But that's the thing though. Like, you know what I mean? If he wasn't in that window, he sits out, gets the proper amount of recovery, and then he comes back, and who knows what happens from there. I mean, they did make the Eastern Conference Finals anyway, you know what I'm saying, which he got hurt in that series. But I'm just saying, like, you don't know how the season would have went. But anyway, that's enough of the excuses, but let's get to it. So, Mr. Logical, true or false? The Pittsburgh Steelers are a Super Bowl contender.
No. Because I'm trying to think. Super Bowl contender, 14-team playoff. So they're probably only, who knows? They could end up with the bye. But the likelihood of them getting the bye is tough. So that puts them right now, I believe they're somewhere near Buffalo. They're probably third. Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh. Yeah. So that gets them 3. That means they would play. So 2 would play 7.
So right now,
2 would play 7. 3 would play 6. 6 is probably like the Chargers.
So right now, as we sit here right now, real quick, Chiefs are the 1 seed, 9-1. Bills are the 2 seed, 9-2. Pittsburgh's 8-2. They're the 3. Houston is the 4 as the South representative. The Chargers are 5, so we would get Texans, Chargers. We would get Steelers, Ravens, because the Ravens are the number 6 right now. And then you would get Denver at Buffalo.
Okay, so you get Steelers, Ravens, and that would be the 3rd time if they're to meet in the playoffs. They don't reseed. They reseed in the NFL.
Yes.
So if there's an upset, maybe they get lucky. I just don't see a consistent enough offense. That's because some defense is going to get torched. A guy's going to run a great route. He's going to get a pass interference. You're going to get, a guy peeking to the backfield when he should have been. The offenses are going to score points, especially, like I said, we looked at the Chargers. Buffalo's a team that's going to score points. Kansas City, if you slack, Worthy's going to run right by you. So the fact that I don't know if Russ down 10 can just come out there early second quarter and just boom, 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 boom down the field because they need this touchdown on this drive. I think that's going to be their weak link.
So for me, I agree, no, but I look at the landscape, right? And it all depends on matchups and everything, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, the Steelers didn't even score a touchdown last week against Baltimore, 18-16 win. But this is my thing. And I know this is going to sound stupid because this team is nowhere near the playoffs. But let me see them match up with Cincinnati. You know what I mean? Let me see how they defend Cincinnati. And they haven't played them yet. They still have to play them twice. And the reason that I say that is because I don't know if the Steelers, to your point, can go tit for tat, if you will. Like obviously they scored 28 against Washington 2 weeks ago, but we always, well, at least I always talk about how bad and awful Washington secondary is in the first place.
Yeah, and they had 21 into that last heave to get
Right.
they didn't go into the fourth quarter with 28 points.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the touchdown with less than a minute left to Mike Williams. So when you
To
look
that
at
point,
that,
they probably had like 8 or 9 possessions and 21 points.
so for me, I put Pittsburgh in the category of the Dolphins. I think they need home field advantage if they're going to get through.
The thing is, they often end up with a couple of AFC North teams who play outdoors anyway. So unless the yellow seats,
well, that's not what I mean.
impact,
That's not what I mean.
I'm just the comfort of
I'm
being
just
at
saying,
home,
right? Of just being at home. So, like for example, you know what I mean? Like they went up to Orchard Park last year for the playoff game. Now granted they were starting Mason Rudolph.
and like I said, they were a bad pass interference call away from getting the ball back and tying
and maybe being able to tie it. Yeah, and then you know what I mean. If you got to go to Baltimore, which right now they have the leg up. They're 2 games up in the loss column, and they have the head-to-head. So, but if they had to go to Baltimore, do I trust them to walk into that game and walk out? I say yes, just because Mike Tomlin is such a great coach, and that's
Shut
me.
Up bad news, stupid news, Virginia. We in the building,
right? And that's me giving him the benefit of the doubt, independent of the team.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
What I'm thinking about, and you might relate to this too. That Super Bowl when the Rams played the Patriots, and the Rams had averaged like 30, 31 points a game that year, and Patriots held them to 3. It just felt like offensively, New England was like, if we don't have the route open, we're going to play conservative and just punt it. We're going to play tough defense and feel like if we can hold them under their scoring standard, we can get them to panic early. We could get them to throw the ball on 3 straight downs because they haven't scored on their first 4 possessions, and maybe we can get a 3 and out and get the ball back and move it slow. Because I don't think Tom Brady threw any kind of pass that could potentially even be tipped or intercepted and give the Rams any kind of momentum. That's why I think Julian Edelman had 14 catches in that game, because
and that's where
he probably had 14 catches, like 114 yards, but Tom Brady had like 170 or 80 yards passing that game. It was something low. He had like a 30-yard bomb to Gronk. But I think Pittsburgh would play that same kind of style. Mm-hmm. Russ, don't put it in harm. Give it to Najee. Give it to Warren. If we have the one-on-one on the outside, take that shot on 3rd down. But we don't have to convert this 3rd and 10. If we got the shot on the outside and it's one-on-one, take it. If not, punt it deep. We'll punt it to Buffalo. We'll punt it to Cincinnati. We'll make these teams that score a lot of points stand up there and put the ball in harm's way.
Because and that's kind of the problem, right? Is that Russ will put the ball in harm's way.
But I think as they get, because you have to think about last week. They had 6 field goals. How many of those times could they probably go for it on 4th down instead of kicking a field goal?
True.
So but also we'll get 18 points this way, and we'll just hope that our defense holds up.
And I'm also going to factor in the cold weather into his throwing. Not that he can't do it per se, but just that ball, that moon ball, if you will, is going to come out a little different when it's 13 degrees.
Yeah, that Western Pennsylvania wind is a lot like the Buffalo Lake effect.
Yeah.
But like I said, if Mike Tomlin is good with a 52-yard field goal attempt, any day of the week he'll take points.
So this is the problem, right? So when you ask, or when I ask, I guess, because I asked the question, you know what I mean? if Pittsburgh is a Super Bowl contender, I have to look at their peers, right? So this is not vintage Kansas City that we're looking at right now. You know what I mean? Like when I look at Buffalo, they look great right now. They still lost a lot, you know what I mean? That may, show itself down the road, on defense. I look at Baltimore, Lamar Jackson is probably the MVP right now, but they got 4 losses. You know what I mean? So they're not exactly.
They got a couple of bad losses too.
Well, they lost to the Raiders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, granted, right? You know what I mean? They lost to Kansas City opening night at Arrowhead. They lost at Pittsburgh the other day. I can't fault them for that. But they lost at Cleveland. You know what I mean? Jameis's first game, starting, and they lost to the Raiders at home. So, I mean, so it's not like this is Baltimore of Ray Lewis ilk or something along those lines. And we saw
if they were giving the ball to Derrick Henry 25 times, they probably
and by the way, to Mike's point, he's been talking about it for the last 3 weeks. There's a whole lot of time that Derrick Henry's not in the game that he should be in the game.
Yo, I am not a defensive coordinator. I've never been one. I've never coached a single football team, even my squadron flag football.
He just said it too.
If you see the formation and Derrick Henry's not in there, it's a screen pass. It's not a handoff. I don't care what you could. I don't know what the math is, but if you turn on a Ravens game this weekend and it's 2nd and 8 and Henry gets the ball and it's 3rd and 4 after that 4-yard run and he comes off the field, you know what the next play is. And if they convert and he doesn't come back on, they're running it, they're throwing it again. It's like
my guy Todd Monken.
It's like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, going back to the Steelers, have a substantial size difference, but he still runs it in between the tackles.
Right.
Hill's not running in between the tackles. He's not running the same counter play that Derrick Henry's running at all. Like, they don't even call it because it's like, why would we call it with you back here when I got 700 pounds in 22 jersey over there that could just run? Like, no, I'm not giving it to you. Just block for Lamar. We're going to run his quarterback keeper, or slip by here. We're going to throw you the screen. That's it.
I am,
your job.
Not to change the subject, but I am interested in Baltimore this week.
Where?
They got the Chargers on Monday Night Football, the Brother Bowl, the Harbaugh Brother Bowl. So, I want to see how Baltimore reacts. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can tell a lot about a team like Buffalo, for example. That win that they got the other day, not that Buffalo needs it per se in the context that I'm about to say, but that's the type of win that could springboard you. You know what I mean?
Because they've beaten Kansas City in the regular season, and Kansas.
No, I know, but
so they know.
There's a different high. There's a different high of we beat them and they were undefeated. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think they care about that at all.
And Josh Allen ran that last touchdown for Mercury Morse, by the way.
Indeed. Yeah.
But
they beat them. They beat them in the regular season, and it still looms over your head.
Right. No. Definitely.
Can we do this? So I don't. That's why.
No, but I'm talking about the regular season, though, not the playoffs. I'm just
Josh
talking about
Allen was like, yeah, this is a Week 11 game because he knows if we see these guys get in the playoffs, somebody on my team is going to uncharacteristically shit the bed.
Well, I still think
somebody dependable is going to shit the bed. It's going to be a bad face mask, like Von Miller, a generational.
I still think talent. Buffalo got to get them there. Like
they had them there last year.
No, I know, and they missed the field goal. They missed that field goal. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Every single time there's somebody that historically fucks up. Like, how did you miss this field goal? Or how they play so poorly in the red zone to force them to have to kick the field goal. Same thing with 13-second game. Like, how did you give up a pass to Kelsey? No, a pass to Tyreek Hill and a pass to Kelsey in back-to-back plays with 13. I'm leaving everybody else
crazy
open.
Though, these last 2 games that they've played against Kansas City, the playoff game and this past weekend, it's been the little dudes. It's been Hardman. You know what I mean? And Xavier got loose on him too. He just couldn't keep his foot in bounds. So I'm concerned about that in a rematch. In
a rematch, I would take Kansas City because I picked Buffalo because it's regular season, and I think Kansas City's been doing that great.
That makes sense.
In a rematch, because I haven't seen a team beat Kansas City twice in 1 year since Mahomes been there. I could be wrong.
I don't.
Only person I really see.
Remember, he had that record against the AFC West.
The AFC West, I think might be something in
something like 29-6 or something like that.
Yeah, it's somewhere it's single digits, but I don't think anyone's beaten them twice in the same season. Tom Brady's beaten them twice in the playoffs, but one was the AFC Championship, one was a Super Bowl, but it was wrapped up. I mean, but so it's like I think Buffalo also knows that this could be the year because I don't think Kansas City's clicking on all cylinders. I think they have, and I know we're getting away from Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh
I was
went
about
out
to
and
move
got
on to
Mike Williams.
yeah,
Pittsburgh went out and got Mike Williams because they had Jordan Pickens on the other side. It was like, we need somebody else that can do at least what Pickens does. Even if what Pickens does isn't great, it's enough to get him open. So let's get another guy to do the same thing. Kansas City has been playing around with these possession wide receivers ever since Tyreek left. Like they're trying to prove some kind of point that he wasn't the reason. But I'm like, yo, if you got a guy that runs that fast and gets that much attention, it's going to be open. Kelsey's going to be wide open no matter what the coverage is if Tyreek runs up the seam because the corner and the safety have to pay attention, and the linebacker probably has to carry him up the field. And Kelsey can just run underneath for 12-yard routes, getting the ball in space. But now, Worthy's not that threat, so that linebacker doesn't have to carry him up the seam, and Kelsey's there, so he'll have 11 catches for 76 yards.
right.
So it's like, stuff like that because he's not getting the extra space. They
Okay.
messed around. They didn't do it. They should have tried to make a move. I would have called him like, yo, what's the problem with DK? But that's neither here nor there. But like I said, Pittsburgh made that move. I think they're playing with more confidence.
House
And I
money.
think the way they like to play football,
Mm-hmm.
they can carry that luggage on any plane, no matter where the game is.
True or false? There's a team that is not in the playoff picture today that will make the playoffs.
I would say Tampa Bay because I think the South is only getting one team in, and Atlanta's inability to pressure up the middle is going to cost them because it's only so long these corners can cover. I was thinking that. I was thinking as soon as I said it, I was like, Mike's gonna fill in the blanks. I'm just gonna keep going. I'm acting like I ain't say it. But it's only so long. Like NFL corners can probably cover you well for 3.5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They can cover you decently for 4 and be there. But at 4.5, no pressure on the quarterback. Bo Nix was 17 for 19 in the first half against Atlanta. With good defensive players, just they don't have the players where they need them. That was what I talked about in the beginning of the year. I don't think they have the size for Kirk to be like, hell, he's down there somewhere. I'm going to throw it up. Drake London is a big body, but they run him out of the slot because I don't think he's like quick. He's like Devontae Adams quick on the outside. So you kind of get him in the middle, you get him in motion, and you get him matched up on maybe the nickel corner. Maybe you get him in like some kind of rub routes, and that's where Mooney can kind of get loose. So there's not a lot of, and Kyle Pitts doesn't really beat man coverage when he's on a DB. So I think their inability to kind of open up their offense because it looks very they don't and the wide receivers aren't big. Raven McLeod is a returner playing wide receiver. Like even the number 34 makes it feel like it doesn't flow. Like it just doesn't have the same. Like I don't know.
It makes me think of a bootleg Justice Hill.
It's just a strange look when he's out there running routes. And like I said, they're both small. They're like 5'9", 5'10". And Kurt is a guy that he doesn't move around a lot, and they get pressure up the middle because the offensive line hasn't really been upgraded on the edges.
Mm-hmm.
The guards are solid, but they like to run outside runs. So the tackles aren't that great of blockers. Kyle Pitts is not a great blocker. So you end up in a lot of 2nd and 9, 3rd and 7s.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had JJ's down there somewhere, Jamar gonna get open somewhere, Cooper's out there somewhere, Puka, like one of these guys. Drake London's a guy that's like in the red zone, yeah, throw it up. But like in the middle of the field, he doesn't stretch the defense to where you know what, I'm throwing this Jamar Chase type of route for him. So I think with that, Tampa Bay has the potential to end up winning the division because I saw some with their schedule, heard some today. I was watching the Rich Eisen show.
Damn, man, about to steal all my thunder.
Just kindred spirits.
About to steal all my thunder.
But they have.
I got it right here.
Okay, let me run it down and you let me know if I'm hitting the right numbers. I think they got Carolina 2 times.
They do.
They have Dallas.
They do.
They have maybe a Jacksonville.
No,
they got the Raiders because they got the AFC West, right? So I think right there you got 2 wins. Dallas is another win because they're just too injured.
All right. Well,
how you feel about Dallas?
This is where I'll take over. This is where I take over. So they got the Giants. The Giants this weekend.
Oh,
they got the Panthers and Raiders. So that's 3 consecutive weeks.
And they got them at what, 8-5 after that?
No, they're 4-6 right now, I believe. Let me double check real quick. They're 4-6 right now.
Okay, so that puts them at 7-6 in 3 weeks.
Yeah, they got Dallas.
8-6.
They get Carolina again.
9-6.
And then they got the Saints.
That's tough if the Saints are healthy because they have Saints healthy they have playmakers. They had that stretch where so many people were injured and they lost a lot of games, and then those guys came back. And those games were toss-ups. You could lose games when you have everyone there. But having those 3 or 4 games without Taysom Hill, without Derek Carr, you out there with Spencer Rattler and a bag of chips playing quarterback. But so that could be the first loss of this stretch. But that's a division game. It's a toss-up.
Mm-hmm.
So
if we're just talking about talent, so I gotta go with the Dolphins. But the problem is that when I look at that schedule, you know what I mean? They get New England this week. They should win that, but Drake May's been playing well. They go to Lambeau for Thanksgiving for the late game. They get the Jets at home.
That's a tough game for a Miami team.
That's what I'm saying. Jets are free falling. The week after the Jets, they go to Houston. After they play Houston, they get San Francisco at home. And then they close at Cleveland and at the Jets. So
yeah, I don't know how you picked Miami as your team.
No, I didn't pick them. I just said going off of talent. Just going off of talent. Okay. That's the answer. Right. Because everybody wants to keep Cincinnati alive. When I tried to tell everybody from day one that Cincinnati is not making the playoffs.
But that's it's not the people who are believing in Cincinnati.
They're just looking at one side of the ball.
It's not like they're that far off. It's not crazy to think that an explosive offense with the quarterback playing at that level can cover up, because the Ravens defense is just as bad as Cincinnati.
Now listen to this.
Lamar playing lights out. It's just a matter of
right. But you know what I'm saying? Listen to this, right?
If they would have
just talked about
one of the 3 face masks on that play against Baltimore,
but they didn't.
They would have won that game. You know what I mean? So it's like
they didn't.
People are looking at one side of Cincinnati.
Well, people are looking at one side of the ball, just like in the NBA when we talk about the Lakers. People are like, "Oh, look at LeBron and AD." Like, yeah, but who playing defense? But besides AD. But
if both of those guys can get you 62 to 64 points,
you can win a game. You ain't gonna win 4 games.
I'm not gonna fault you if you're picking the Bengals the last 2 weeks with 7 losses.
Right.
That's at this point.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. So check it out.
They gotta play spoiler.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Because when you look at Cincinnati, right, obviously there's not a chance that Cincinnati is going to win the division unless Pittsburgh slips on banana peels and the Ravens slip in the shower, because they've already been swept by the Ravens, as is. They lost to Kansas City already. Not that Kansas City's a factor in that way, but just looking at conference record. They just lost to the Chargers, who's the 5th seed right now, or the 6th seed right now. Then they still play Pittsburgh twice, to include closing at Pittsburgh. And they have a game with Denver. So Cincinnati basically has to win out or lose. They could go 6-1.
Right now they are
or 5-1.
It's Zach Taylor, Jamar Chase, Hendrickson, and Burrow sitting at a bar in Cincinnati right now. If they're sitting down, they're looking at each other saying, like, I can't believe we lost to New England. I can't believe we didn't put Kansas City away because they weren't doing anything. They got a defensive touchdown to get it back in that game.
Lost the game to Baltimore in overtime.
And then the second one.
And the second one, too.
The second one is probably the one that's going to kill them the most because they had complete control of that game for the entire first half. I think the time of possession might have been like 19 or 20 minutes to 10 or something close to that, like 21 minutes to 9, 20 and a half minutes to something 9.5 minutes. Yeah. And then you give up the out route to a guy who's only caught like 3 passes his whole career, and he takes it for like 80-yard touchdown. You don't keep Lamar contained. He runs it down to the 1. And then just your play call on that 2-point conversions, like it probably could have been better. I know the penalties could have been called, but those are the couple of games
I think Zach Taylor's a dead man walking. You know what I'm saying? Especially every time they put a microphone in Jamar Chase's face, I just see Zach Taylor putting an extra shirt in his luggage, just putting one more shirt in there just in case.
And Nick Wright said this today about Jamar Chase, so I don't want to take credit for it, but I like when he said it because it made sense. He was like, Jamar Chase is just the right amount of jerk. Like he says whatever he wants, and maybe you wish he wouldn't say it, but he's so talented that you can't stop him on the field anyway. Right. So when he comes in and he says it, you can't say, well, you didn't do your part. He had 200 something.
No, but that's exactly it, Mike.
Yards against the Ravens, and it's like
right. No, but that's exactly it, Mike. It is the owner, and bad owners make snap judgments. You know what I mean?
Honestly, I don't think the owner did anything poorly. I think they just they have the same problem.
The owner doesn't pay anybody.
He paid Joe.
Well, that's the quarterback.
He's going to pay Jamar. He paid the coach. He kept Marvin Lewis around for all those years. He respected continuity. I think it's just a byproduct of like a couple of guys being injured, guys playing out of place. You don't have your top defensive tackles in. You just teams. It's not college football. You don't have like 83 guys that you could just run in another 5-star and keep the train rolling with your MVP caliber quarterback. Right. I never really felt like Joe Burrow was MVP caliber. I thought people were just kind of putting him up there because of the Super Bowl run.
No, he's a really good quarterback. He just can't stay healthy.
His wrist still hurts. He was still flexing it before the game last week, but you can't tell by his numbers. I think it's like 29 touchdowns and 4 picks, and there's 7 losses. They got 7 losses this year.
Right, but
touchdowns and 2 interceptions, 68% passing. Like his pass rating is like 112.
But the good news for them, like just going off of that, because everybody, there's a lot of people out here still tooting the playoff horn for them. So just looking at it realistically, Denver is the 7th seed at 6-5. The Colts are 8.
They got to win 6 in a row.
No, I know. They're a game behind the Colts. They're a half a game behind the Dolphins. So, like, mathematically, I can see it. The problem is they just lost to the wrong teams already. That's the problem. So, on top of their record,
right now,
they have no tiebreakers.
They have to go 6-0.
They got to beat Denver at the very least. You know what I mean?
But we're going to talk about college football and records and why that matters for playoffs.
And then one more team.
They simply got to go 6-0. They got to get 10-7. 10-7 in the AFC puts you 7, 8, and 9. It just depends on how it shakes out.
One more team real quick. I don't think this team is going to make the playoffs. But, Mike, let Lethal know that I threw him a bone. Pause. You know what I'm saying? When I look at the Colts, this is the same argument that we made for Tampa Bay, except for Tampa Bay has the guy that's 3rd in touchdowns in the league, Baker Mayfield. They have Todd Bowles, who, if nothing else, is going to coach a defense and blitz young quarterbacks. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, when I look at the Colts, it's schedule-based. I don't think the Colts are a good team, but it's schedule-based. They got They get the Lions this week, so
we can chalk that up.
Go on and make that 2 lines perpendicular to each other.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
42-17, 42-21. Yeah,
but then they got the Patriots. They get Tennessee. They get Jacksonville and the Giants after their bye. So, like, that's a manageable number of teams. I just don't know if they're consistent enough to not lose one of those games.
They're at 6-5 right now.
They're 5-6 right now.
5-6.
So they're a game behind Denver.
So they lose to Detroit this week, and they could win 4 in a row.
Possibly,
What's their last game of the year?
Let's see here. Give me a second here.
Probably Houston, right?
I think they played Houston twice already. They played Houston twice already because they opened with Houston and then they played them a couple of weeks ago. That was the game where
he got tired.
Yeah, where he got tired. Yeah, so they closed with Jacksonville.
So in theory,
so here it is. Here it is in order.
They need to win 5. They need to go. Okay, so if you got Detroit this week, that's 6. That's 5-7. They got to win 5 in a row, and they have 5 winnable games because 2 against Tennessee.
Well, here you go in order. This is in order. Right. So Detroit at home.
Okay.
At New England.
Okay.
Bye week. At Mile High. Tennessee at home. At MetLife against the Giants. And then finish out at home with Jacksonville.
And right now, they're 5-6.
They're 5-6 right now. So they could probably afford.
They'll finish 9-8.
To lose. Yeah, I picked them to go 8-9. So that's about the right, window.
They'll finish 9-8. I don't. Denver being top.
Corners, though.
Denver being top defense, top 5 defense against the run and the pass. It just neutralizes your quarterback altogether because he doesn't throw that well. And when you want to use a running game to kind of get the quarterback available, get him opportunities. He's going to take his opportunities through the passing game, which is running the ball, which Denver handles both of those well. So I think that's a loss. I think Detroit's a loss because I don't think Detroit sees NFL teams I don't think they show up and see an NFL team across the field. I think they show up and see a scrimmage.
You know what? I know we're not doing picks tonight, but I'm going to just say this real quick. Man, oh man. Man, oh man. We got a game this weekend, Mr. Logical. You know what I'm saying? We got a game this weekend. And if I remember correctly, I'm going to pull it up real quick. I think it's at Lambeau Field. Yep, it's at Lambeau Field. You got the Niners coming through. Season on the line.
They're going to lose. We're going to figure it out later. I'll look.
No. Like I said, we ain't making picks. I just wanted to bring that up. It was just on my mind since we were talking about this. Because Arizona's 6-4. But the rest of the division sitting at 5-5. San Francisco goes to Lambeau this week. The Rams get Philly at home. The Cardinals go to Seattle.
So the Cardinals could leave 7-4 with a couple of game lead and be in the proverbial category.
Yeah, and they beat the 49ers and the Rams already. You know what I mean? So obviously they're not locking anything up. But
all of these divisions are just botching my parlay I set for the I don't think I have one correct. I deleted the app.
No, we did. We did the over-under thing on the hot box yesterday. You were killing the AFC. You know what I'm saying? You killed the AFC with the over-unders. You know what I'm saying? We ain't do the NFC yet. But yeah, so I mean, that's just where we are this weekend. There's a lot going on in the NFL, as far as these games that matter right now. I brought up Baltimore and the Chargers on Monday night. Chargers are the 5 right now. Baltimore's the 6. You know what I mean? So that's an important game as far as tiebreakers.
And shout out to I want to give credit to where I heard this. Michael Smith, he says, as the facts change, so does my opinion. Herbert might have it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He might have it. Like, I want to see more.
Definitely.
But watching him, and like I said, maybe that's why they gave him the contract. I'm never going to profess that I know everything I'm talking about all the time. Like, I can be wrong. Well, I relish the opportunity to learn.
Well, no, when we had that argument, when we had that argument, you were absolutely right. No, you were absolutely right. You know what I'm saying? He hadn't proved it yet. You know what I mean? Like the game he had games where it was in his hands and he didn't come through. He had 700 passes in the season. He had 700 passes in the season and didn't have 30 touchdowns.
Yeah, he had his numbers. His numbers weren't great. He started out like 8-8, 8-9.
So he got a rocket and he's accurate.
But he finished 17-36. But he made the throws when it counted. Granted, Cincinnati
kept giving him opportunities.
Helps him out. Like, hey, let's play fucking prevent.
And that's the same thing that we gave Eli Manning credit for. So you know what I'm saying? And he still scored more points in that game than Eli did. So I mean, it was the Super Bowl, but I'm just saying. Some
people give him credit.
Just saying. So, of course, Mr. Logical, you know what I'm saying? You said
my man's not a Hall of Famer.
You said, I agree. You said my two favorite words consecutively. College football.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So, of course, tonight.
Yeah, ready for Mike's brain?
We got the
ready
news.
For this beautiful mind Venn diagram spider web that he's about to.
In my hand, I have these college football rankings. So before we even get into any of that stuff we talked about pre-show, let me bitch a little bit. Let me bitch a little bit.
I couldn't handle what you talked about pre-show.
So this is my problem with rankings in general. This is why I don't like preseason rankings. First of all, when the College Football Committee came together to make their first set of rankings, they basically did a lot of following of the AP poll. It was already there for them. They mixed some stuff up a little bit, but it was essentially the AP poll. So once you do this, you have teams in a certain position, and they lie to us and say, we start fresh every week. You do not.
No, you don't.
You know what I'm saying? And the reason, so let me take one thing here. And, you know, I'm not saying, see, this is the problem. This is the problem with college football fans. When you say things, they ask you hypotheticals. So if you say Indiana's ahead of Alabama, they'll say, who would you choose if Alabama played Indiana today? Irrelevant. Yes, I would pick Alabama, but irrelevant. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about right here, right now. And guess what? There's 3 more rankings left. 2 more before the actual before the final one. So we have time for this to work out. So rank them how they should be ranked and then let it fall into place. The reason that I say that, one of the reasons that I say that is because I look at SMU, you know, down at number 13. I look at Miami at number 8. Same conference. You know, when I look at Miami, who is Miami beat? Now, you could tell me Louisville because Louisville beat Clemson, but guess what? 2-5 told y'all on Friday. 2-5 told y'all on Friday to take Stanford 20.5 against Louisville. And you know what Stanford did? They just said, fuck it, and won the game. You know what I'm saying? So you losing to Stanford, you don't get to count that as a good win, Miami. You know, maybe the Gators, they turning their season around. Maybe you could call the Gators a decent win.
Now, you're going with this is your AP poll discussion, correct?
Right. But when I look at SMU, no, this is still the college football rankings. But when I look at SMU, you know, like you look around, you try to figure out where their good wins are. Maybe you don't find one, but this is the difference. Miami lost to Georgia Tech, who is not anywhere in these rankings, even though Georgia Tech's a good team. They're just not in these rankings. I'm using these rankings as my source. Who did SMU lose to? The team that's right behind them, BYU, which is another reason I don't like it because why is SMU in front of BYU when BYU beat them? I know that they lost to Kansas last week. They fell 8 spots. I get it, but I'm just saying. So when I look at this, now this is where we get into what we talked about. So when I'm looking at Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, and Tennessee, those 4, that little quartet of SEC teams. You know, Bama beat Georgia. Ole Miss beat Georgia. Georgia beat Tennessee. Tennessee beat Bama. Georgia beat Texas. Texas ain't beat nobody breathing. But if you want to look at it and dig a little deeper, Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, who is not in these rankings, But that's Texas's best win. So that's that. You look at Georgia. They beat Tennessee, but they had the tough schedule. I mentioned who they lost to, but they went to Ole Miss. They went to Bama. They went to Texas. They beat Texas. So I'm going to give Georgia a little benefit of the doubt just based on the schedule. You know what I'm saying? So then when you look at Ole Miss, right? They got the big win over Georgia. But you know what they got? They got a loss to LSU, who's not in this ranking. They got a loss to Kentucky, who doesn't have a winning record to date. And by the way, Kentucky a 20.5-point underdog at Texas this weekend. Furthest game they've ever played west in this country. Them coming down to Austin, Texas is the first time. This is the furthest Kentucky has ever played in this here United States.
That was Kentucky? I thought it was Western Kentucky.
No, it was Kentucky. That's that SEC shit. You know what I'm saying? So now,
Did they ever play in Missouri?
Texas West. More west
Texas
than Missouri.
Further west of Missouri? I thought it yeah, because it's Kansas. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So then when I'm looking at this, right? You got, Colorado is your first 2-loss non-SEC team because you got Texas A&M in front of them with 1 SEC loss. They beat LSU, of course, who beat Ole Miss. They play Texas next week. But I don't know if A&M's going to get out of Jordan Hare this weekend. So that's an early upset alert for you. Auburn over Texas A&M. You know what I'm saying? But now when I look at this, you peel it back. I look at Army, and I'm looking at Boise State, and I'm looking at Tulane. Those 3 teams, right? My G5s, my top G5s, because UNLV's in there too now. Because you got to have a team in there to boost Boise, because all Boise has done was lose to Oregon by 3 points, and their best win is Washington State, who just lost to New Mexico this weekend. And by the way, Boise State has the number 126 pass defense in the country out of 134 teams. Just saying.
Told y'all Mike was gonna be in his little Venn diagram, beautiful mind, Russell Crowe-ness over here.
So as we look at this, and I kept saying, so I got to correct myself because I kept saying for the last couple of weeks, Army's got to go to South Bend. I messed that up. They're actually playing at Yankee Stadium. So so Mr. Logical should have been up in there. But anyway,
family responsibilities can't make it.
So let's play a quick game. Check me out, Mike. Let's play a quick game. So now that you got Boise at number 12, you got Army at 19, Tulane at 20. So does that tell me
your AP poll? Yes.
No, I'm still looking at the college rankings, the playoff rankings. Still looking at the playoff rankings.
25 because the playoff rankings have Miami as the 3 seed.
Right, you're looking at the bracket. I'm just looking at the full ranking.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 1 through 25.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So Boise's 12, Army's 19, Tulane's 20, UNLV is 24. So what that tells me is if Boise wins, you ain't starting shit over every week because if Boise wins out, they're making the playoff. So you ain't starting nothing over. So if Army goes and beats Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium this weekend, they win out. That includes beating Navy, who is not as good as we thought they were. That includes beating Tulane, who's right behind them in the AAC title game. Right? So now you got an undefeated Army team. This is where you painted yourself, committee. This is where you painted yourself. Now, granted, it's not very likely that Army's going to beat Notre Dame. They're 14.5-point underdogs. So let's not, but just for the sake of conversation,
that's
just for the sake of
being First Academy to be 14.5 against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
That means somebody gives them a shot.
Right. And just for the sake of full thoroughness here, you know what I mean? If Army wins Notre Dame this weekend at Yankee Stadium, win out, they're undefeated. Boise wins out. They got the 1 loss to Oregon that they're getting credit for more than some teams are getting credit for wins. You know what I mean? Then you got Colorado down here at number 16. If they win out, they're in the Big 12 title game. You got BYU here at 14. If they win out, they're in the Big 12 title game. You got Arizona State at 21. If they win out, they could be in the Big 12 title game. Same with Iowa State right behind them at 22. So where you painted yourself in this corner is hypothetically, calm down, Mike. I'm not hating, just trying to lay out the scenario. If Kansas beats Colorado this weekend, gives Colorado their third loss. If Arizona State, 3-point favorite at home against BYU this weekend, if they win that game, BYU takes a second Big 12 loss. Iowa State's got the Utes. Iowa State 7-point favorites at Rice Eccles. If they win that game,
and Isaac can't throw the ball to Utah players.
And I just learned this word today. And if Iowa State wins Farmageddon against Kansas State, I just learned that today, against Kansas State, then Iowa State's in the Big 12 championship game. So what you could have is two lost teams in the Big 12 championship game. And one of them is number 22 right now. So if they get through and win the Big 12 championship game, you're going to jump them past undefeated Army, past Boise.
Yep.
Because as it stands right now, looking at the bracket, Boise's number 4 right now in the bracket.
True.
So they would be ahead of the Big 12 champion, perceived as BYU right now, who's all the way at 14. So BYU would be the 12 seed. Looking at this bracket right now, you would give Ohio State BYU, and once they dispose of that carcass, they're going to play Boise.
It's one for bracket on November 19th. It is every year.
You know,
every year the bracket looks optimistic. Every year the bracket looks like, man.
So the question is,
got a chance every single year. And then after all the games are played and all the championship games are played, then the conjecture's thrown in, which is to your hypothetical point. Who would you rather see play Alabama, Georgia, or Indiana? Would you rather see an Alabama-Georgia rematch or Georgia versus Indiana? Like, that's the conversations that happen. They happen with the pundits. I remember a few years back when Alabama beat Georgia twice in the same year. They beat them in the regular season, and I think each time they beat them by a single digits, maybe a field goal, touchdown. And Kirby Smart, he got beat. They lost the SEC championship game. He goes to the podium and he says, I guarantee you that team over there doesn't want to see us again. Well, there's only 4 spots, homie. You weren't going to get another shot, but he labored for it. Like I said, Nick Saban straight up was on TV announcing he was a guest announcer at the SEC championship game. He said, we lost on last second field goals. If they would have had 12 teams, they would have gotten them in. They're going to get the teams in that they feel, maybe even based on analytics. Analytics will say that Georgia's is a top 8 team in the country. Alabama's top 6. Maybe Ole Miss is 11. The analytics at the end of the year will like I said, you're going to get about 16, 18 teams. I'm expanding it to 18 because it's a lot of these different dynamics because 2 and 3 lost teams could end up in conference championships and a couple of undefeated G5 schools could be out there. So you're going to get a pool if you're the committee of we'll go 16 teams.
So
you're going to get that pool, and what they're going to do is figure out, okay, which 4 teams don't fit.
So
even if they're an SEC or Big 12 school. But the SEC champs getting in, the Big 12 champs getting in, the Big 10 champs getting in.
That's what I was about to bring up. So
ACC champs getting in.
So that scenario that I just laid out, everything that I just walked through, the reason that I walked through that scenario is because if Iowa State is 22 right now and they win the Big 12 title,
they're going to jump them into the playoff.
And that's where you paint yourself in the corner.
But that's the thing. I don't think they care about the corner or the paint.
I know, but I'm just here to call it out.
Yeah, we call it out every year. Last year was a prime example with Florida State not getting in. The reason Florida State didn't get in was because Texas beat Alabama. Alabama beat Georgia. You can't tell
The SEC champions are
America
not getting in.
you're not getting in.
And you can't.
And we're putting in Florida State, even though they won
And you
all their games.
can't not put the team in that beat the
SEC champion.
Right.
That was the real conversation. The statement that they wrote down on notepad and they had presented at the podium, or they had for all the pundits to say, was, we didn't feel Florida State was a complete team because they were missing their starting quarterback, even though he was missing for a month. All right, I mean, so it's like, so they're going to get these teams in, and like I said, we'll transition to our G5 conversation. Where I think you and
we will. But I
got one more thing for you. Yeah. But as far as like the committee, certain things are going to play out. Like we probably, like your SEC, doomsday dream you had with all these teams, it's not going to happen.
Right.
But it would have been dope to see, because we know the committee will not, because they box themselves into this 12 out of 136. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The NFL has 14 out of 32.
Right.
And even that has very clear lines of, like, if the Houston Texans and every team in the AFC South just hit a wall and the Texans finish their season at 8-9, but they win the tiebreakers that are the parameters that are already set by the NFL, they're in. The committee has parameters that they're going to stick to. They've already made these concessions over the last 10 years. We already know what they are. We already know what they respect. We already know what they want to see. We already know what they don't like to repeat. They didn't want a TCU versus Georgia again, because the championship game should never be 65 to anything unless it's 64. And it was 130. Yeah. So we already know what their framework is. And once you get these 16 teams in, whether it's BYU, whether it's Indiana, if you have the wins with the 12 teams, they're probably going to slot you in. But if you give them any wiggle room and you are a third place Big 12 team with 3 losses, even though they could be the 3 greatest losses ever, you could have played 3 games against NFL teams. They don't care. They're going to get the 2-loss SEC school in that's going to fill up the stadium in the middle of Texas.
Right.
Oh, look at that. Upgrade.
Yeah. So what we got right now, you know what I'm saying? You are ready for that.
Oh, Mike. Oh, you sneak out. Yo.
You wasn't ready for that. So here we go.
I'm proud of this moment.
So here you are. This is not facetious. This is dope as shit. Yeah, I'm glad you. No, this is so fucking dope. Keep going. My bad. So this is your playoff bracket as of today. As you can see, the top 4 seeds are Oregon, Texas, Miami, and Boise. So those are the teams getting the byes. This is how it shakes out. Alabama and Notre Dame, the winner gets Oregon. Ohio State, BYU, we brought that up already. Winner gets Boise. Texas gets the winner of Indiana and Ole Miss. And then you got Georgia and Penn State in a game that I would love to see. And the winner of that game plays Miami. You know what I'm saying? So now, Mr. Logical, it's time to play my favorite game.
All right, let's hear it.
Guess that line. So, This is from the guy that I want to be like when I grow up, Josh Pate. You know, his show has a deal and CBS has their deal with FanDuel. So those 4 matchups that we just went through. All right. BYU going to Columbus. What do you think the spread is?
A hypothetical?
No, this is legit. If they played today, this is what the spread would be.
Ohio State plus 10.5.
Ohio State by 21.
What?
By 21. All right.
Based off of what?
World
I'm not a BYU guy, but it's like, they have big football players. Like they have a big,
Well, you
strong,
got to figure
solid,
they're coming off a
older
loss to.
team.
You got to
Their
figure they're
team.
coming off a loss to a Kansas team that came into that game
Okay, cool.
3-6.
Google the average age of the BYU football team. They're like 22 across the board.
All
Like
right.
they're adults. They're not like dead ass. Look at BYU. BYU probably the same age as Jacksonville.
All right. Here you go.
That's crazy. 21 points.
Here you go. Georgia going into Happy Valley. What's that line?
Georgia 7.5.
Georgia by 1.5.
Oh, okay. That's respectful. I was getting ridiculous because the 21 with the BYU and Ohio State. Like
Ole Miss at Indiana. What's that line?
Ole Miss 3.5.
Ole Miss 1.5. And then finally, Bama at Notre Dame going to South Bend. Touchdown, Jesus. What's that line?
Alabama 2.5.
Alabama. I think I said this already. 1.5.
I was going to say 1.5. I'm like, they can't.
They're all 1.5 besides the Ohio State BYU thing. So I guess you're going to get if this is the bracket, you get what you want. You know what I mean? But anyway, so moving forward, Mr. Logical, I presented a question to you earlier.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And because this is before I get to my random notes, but I just want you to tell me, do you feel that the G5 needs to be removed?
Okay, here we go. Like I said, I told you you're going to like my response because it's a little bit more in my wheelhouse. You can see a couple of these degrees over here. The bottom one is criminal justice administration. Top one is public administration. I was always big into like government, crime, law, like procedures, logistics, like something that like makes sense to me. Something that, like I said, when every time I talk about the committee, you get into the stats and the spread, and I look at like, okay, what are the behaviors of the committee? What do we know for sure? What have we seen that's consistent throughout the years? Even though people feel it's inconsistent, I don't think so. I think they've consistently gone with if you have an avenue to where we can move you out of championship contention, we will, and they have every single time. So what I thought about as far as like keeping the G5 and why it's important for the G5, you have to have something else. So I thought about this earlier. So I have my favorite Christmas movie. It's called It's a Wonderful Life. It's based on a guy, George Bailey.
What?
It's based in Bedford Falls. It's Frank Capra. It's a great film. Me and my grandson.
Where's Bedford Falls?
It's Bedford Falls, New York. It's upstate.
Okay.
So in the movie, George Bailey, his father starts building a loan company where you can like get a loan to build your house. This other guy named Henry F. Potter is a greedy guy. He owns everything else. When there's like the Great Depression, he bought everything else. There was a run at the bank. He took over the bank. He owns everything else. They have Bailey building a loan. George is trying to get out of town, can't leave. His father dies. He ends up taking over the family business. And in this is one scene, he gives this rant about it. And he was like, not rant, but he was just yelling to the board members. He's like, this town needs this building alone just so they don't have to run the Potter to get anything they ask for. Okay. So with all these other conferences trying to take over everything, you need the G5. You need to give them an opportunity. Yes, we understand that it's not the football products that are coming out of, out west, these smaller schools, Boise State, Idaho's, your Cincinnati's, your smaller schools traditionally aren't producing your NFL talent every single year.
Right.
But they still need an opportunity to play well and have a real goal to get the thing that they want, i.e., everyone in that town needed an opportunity to get a home without having to go to Potter to get some high interest loan. It's like, listen, you can come here. We're a family friendly business. We're going to give you an opportunity. You might not get as many opportunities because we are smaller, but we're going to have this for you. So if you think about the United States has several laws against monopolies and unfair business practices. Sherman Antitrust Act passed in 1890. Law makes it illegal to monopolize and attempt to monopolize or form a contract, combination conspiracy to restrain trade. So all these programs, all these businesses, everyone's trying to take away the big pot at the end of the rainbow for all these smaller schools. If you're not concerned, if you feel like, oh, the quality of football players coming out of Boise State, coming out of these smaller schools, and making all these small schools join the SEC or join the ACC or join the Big Ten, and you're tearing down the Pac-12, and you're not giving them real opportunities, like you're creating a bit of a monopoly. So they need to keep that around so these teams have an opportunity to play their 12-game season and their championship and get at least one of these 52 schools into the ring to play around. That's all they're asking for. No one's asking for it to be 24 teams and 6 of them come from the G5 or 5 of them come from the G5. They just want one school that has risen above everybody else amongst their conglomerate to be able to represent against the proverbial big boys. The big boys need to win their games. Georgia needs to win their games. Tennessee needs to win their games. Clemson needs to win their games because your path to getting in is easy. Because as soon as you win, you're in. These other schools need help. They need rankings. They need to scratch and claw to get an opportunity. Everybody else has got to win. They can win all their games and not get in. Army can be undefeated and possibly not get in, or go undefeated and Boise State doesn't get in, even though their only loss was to the number one team in America. So they need to stay around. The problem is they're never going to be able to match the money. If you look at who gets some money, and I'm pretty sure you probably already looked at something like this, but if you think about like 2023, the Power 5 conferences brought in $3.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Conference USA in 2023 gave their schools $750,000 each. The ACC gave their schools $44 million each. So it's like you're getting every advantage with the money. If these people are competing and they don't have the money, but they're up there, then they should get an opportunity to play against the big boys. Not everyone. It doesn't need to be six Power 5 schools against 6 other schools and one at large, because that's probably going to be a blowout. But the best of the best from that group, give them an opportunity. Don't disband them. Don't block them out. Just give them an opportunity.
So, long story short, the G5 is welfare. So just looking at this here,
Damn,
this
that was harsh.
This is but it's real. I'm gonna get to that. But this is the college football playoff payout this year. So I know it's a little small there. So $4 million goes to each team that makes the playoff. Then you get an additional $4 million for the teams that win the first round games. Or I guess that's everybody. It's the 8 teams. So the bye, you get another $4 million as well. $6 million each for the 4 teams that make the semifinals, and then $6 million each for the championship game. And then, just for making the college football playoff, you get $3 million to cover your expenses for each round that you travel. Because as we brought up before, the first round games are on campus. And then from there, it goes to the bowl games, even though it's stupid to me, because if I'm somebody like, say, Oregon, who's number 1 right now, let's just say it plays out, they stay number 1. Yeah. You mean to tell me Ohio State, who I would have beat probably twice, gets to host a home playoff game and I don't? You know what I mean? So there's that. So when I talk about the welfare, there's some schools out here like Kent State and Akron, LeBron do the right thing.
There's only so much money you could bump to a program, man.
But the point is that, these schools probably don't belong in FBS. And that doesn't apply to schools like, say, Tulane, or Memphis and schools like that. But there is, I feel, a very definitive line of schools that just need to get chopped away. That's half the MAC. That's schools like Temple.
But that's the thing. Why
because they just don't have the budget to compete. They don't have the budget to compete.
That's the thing,
and they don't have the ability to get NIL.
They can continue to compete at the level that they're at. They're just not going to get there. Like they're not going to threaten this position of a good Indiana team, even though generally Indiana has not been one of the better SEC or Big Ten football teams. This year they have a good time. You know, they had a good run. A lot of these schools, yes, they're paying schools to come play them, and I understand that. My issue is that they are not going to threaten the position of any of the Power 5 schools, because once you eliminate the G5,
right,
then that eliminates their contracts, because now they're not going to be on TV. We see Division 2 and Division 3 playoff games on the ESPN, but because they don't factor into the national championship at the highest level of college football, there's no regular season to where we get to see them. So now, when it comes to recruiting, you're just going to have stacked teams because guys don't want to go to Akron because they're in the MAC, and the MAC doesn't get any kind of airplay. Like, if I'm going to a college and I'm a young football player, I want to play. Because even if you want to transfer, every coach isn't going to see all of your tape. But if you play Akron versus Bowling Green one week, and you're the Bowling Green quarterback or wide receiver, and you go off 4 touchdowns, 220 yards, and it's on ESPN, any coach can see that. Like, coaches aren't going to, like, you know, so it's still like the opportunity I think, I don't understand this over insatiability to just limit everything we get and only put the quote unquote best team. It's like, put college football on TV. When it comes to picking a national champion, you're probably not going to have Akron lined up against Oregon at any time. It won't
do the right thing, LeBron. You know, but
I know we keep saying Akron because it's stuck in my head. But like any of these schools, Northern Illinois, yeah, they had their one.
Hey, they beat Notre Dame,
Notre Dame, but that's not going to be a standard thing until their program gets bigger. But these programs aren't going to get bigger if we cut them off from the source. And the food chain is the financial food chain. Like I just said, in 2023, Conference USA gave $750,000 to each school. The same year, the ACC gave $44.8 million for the same product. It's the same thing.
It's supply and demand, right?
It should be a $43 million disparity between.
And that's what the SEC is talking about right now, where they only play 8 games. Them and the ACC only play 8 games, while the Big 10 and Big 12 play 9 conference games. I'm talking about, and the SEC is basically like, hey, ESPN needs to pay us for that extra game.
But they're getting paid so much.
I know. And that's why I wanted to share this feel-good story.
To these meetings and tell people like, yo, shut up. You're getting enough money. You're getting enough for this shit. It's like, what else do you want? You got boosters giving you money. USC has $1 billion, they have billions of dollars in their endowment from donors and former graduates. The money is running rampant and it's getting out of control.
Right.
It's that's football. Why I wanted to share this Akron's never going to threaten Alabama. Toledo is never going to threaten to win, to beat out, all these small football teams that have stadiums that are smaller than Texas high school stadiums are not going to come down and all of a sudden start going to the big house and run an Appalachian State every year. But they should still be given an opportunity as even and as fairly as the playing field can be, which is your ESPN, you have exposure. Like imagine, think about all the people that, we've shared our podcast with and we watched their podcast. Imagine if somebody had a podcast that had 100,000 subscribers and they only shared your videos and not this show. You'd be like, yo, we are a unit. We should both get an opportunity for exposure. They're like, nah, we only want to show Akron because they came down here and took $3 million and we beat them.
Well, that's why I wanted to share the feel good. That's why I wanted to share the feel good story on the screen, right? Because Toledo went into an SEC stadium this year, got paid $1.2 million came out of there with a 24-point win, and then on top of that, they got $575,000 from Maryland because that's who they were supposed to play, but Maryland had to cancel the game. So, so they're dependent. Schools like that are dependent on these payments. That's why I brought up the welfare thing. Just like the FCS schools, like the HBCUs.
Because the ESPN, CBS, NBC, Fox, they're all bowing to these teams as if they have other options. Dog, if Colorado doesn't get their games on ESPN or Fox, or if CBS doesn't play Alabama games, who's going to spread your stuff nationally? You don't have your own TV. Like your Big Ten network is under a CBS umbrella. So it's like, it's not as if you have the leverage to just be like, you know what? We're going to broadcast our own games. No, you won't. It'd be like Netflix trying to watch that fight. It should just be stalling, and we'll be watching, Navy versus whomever, because they're not going to argue with whatever deal CBS gives them. So it's just a matter of like, it's just greed. It's just
that's all greed. It is. That's all
you
it
have
is.
All the talent in the world.
Obviously,
you have the talent pool
games here. The SEC is literally making more than 10 times what the Mountain West is off of their TV deal. And the Mountain West just got poached by the Pac-12, who's going to make a comeback in a few years. Like they took Boise, they took Colorado State, they took Fresno, they took San Diego State, they took Utah State. You know what I'm saying? But this isn't the Pac-12. There ain't no USC, Oregon, Washington, Arizona in that conference.
Cal is in the ACC.
Cal and Stanford. And to your point, SMU
in Atlantic Coast Conference.
SMU was able to get into the ACC, but that's because of their location and the oil money, the school of George W. Bush, by the way, in Eric Dickerson, the Pony Excess. They had that money on standby that a Toledo would never have. So like, yes, like it's fun. Toledo can play against Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, the Central Michigan Chippewas. I didn't make that up. They can play against those teams and then come out. They beat Mississippi State this year.
And then they can play their 9 conference games, and they can finish their season 9-3. They get their championship. They get their bowl game. They do the Meineke Card Care Bowl. Like
or last summer, actually. So this was talked about in the summer.
All get their opportunity. They shouldn't lose their opportunity because a couple of conferences want $75 million a year.
So you don't think that, because this was brought up in the summer, you don't think that they should have their own playoff independent of the CFP?
Well, that playoff wouldn't make any sense if they're not getting any airplay. You're just playing.
I agree. That's why
you're just playing extra games. So just play your games and play your bowl game. Like you're not, unless you're going to literally flat out create a different division and then give it the same type of promotion energy. Granted, you don't have to, but you can go FBS level 1, like they do in high school football here. Like
1A, 2A.
Yeah, 1A, 2A, all the way up to 7A, depends on where you are. If you're a private school, if you're a private Catholic school, you play this kind of schedule because there's a recognition that you can go out and recruit talent from anywhere in the country to come to your Catholic school in Indiana, Georgia, South Carolina, Jersey. You can get kids from wherever they can come, and your team is stacked. You have a $1.5 million budget for your high school football recruitment.
Which is crazy.
You're gonna beat the hell out of all the public schools in your general area, so you have to play a different schedule. That's fine. Which
is crazy too, because like, for example, I know we keep talking about Toledo, but they're one of the better G5s consistently. Their quarterback last year, Daquan Finn, he left to go to Baylor, and then he got benched at Baylor. So, so that's the other thing. Like, they're going to chase the money because if you're any good, they're coming. Like, who was it? The Miami of Ohio coach? Like, Alabama was talking to our kicker.
Yeah, Alabama. He's like, we didn't lose our kicker. We know where he is. Alabama took him.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
We didn't lose him. We know exactly where he is.
So basically, like, there's another. I don't want to. It's not a draft, but there's another. You get from college to the NFL, but now you're going from G5 to Power 4 as well.
JUCOs are tryouts for Division 2 or Division 3 schools. Division 3 schools are somewhat, you can do a little tryout to get to, a Bowling Green or one of these
Right.
Midwestern MAC schools. And then you do 1 year there, you get the extra year eligibility. Now you're 24, you got your man body, and then you get 1 year at Pitt, you get your 1 year at Alabama, you get your 1 year at Syracuse, and then maybe you get drafted. It's the way that college football is going. I
Right.
just think holistically, we understand that that's the part. Let's not cut then all the legs out from under these smaller schools because you need them. You
Well
need
said.
these schools. You need
Hmm.
because I don't want to watch just 40 schools play football. I don't want to watch the 18 Big 10 schools or the 16 Big 12 schools or the 14 SEC
16.
schools and the 18 ACC schools. It's like because once you get 2 losses, what am I watching you for? Half your players going to transfer out.
Right.
If you get to 6-2 and you have no shot at making the playoffs, you might lose your quarterback.
Yeah, we just saw an Alabama player leave today. We saw Bear Alexander leave USC about 4 weeks ago. Like, that's where we are right now. But
Yeah, so
but
like
you know what I'm saying?
these smaller schools need opportunities to continue to play. They need really good ESPN deals because it's not like ESPN's out here reporting net losses. They're turning a profit. Break these kids off, $2-3 million.
And
If
Big
you're
12,
turning a profit of $1.8 billion, man, break these schools off another couple hundred million so we can keep them on TV. That way we don't have to keep watching Sports Center 8 different times throughout the day. You can put actual games on. We don't have to keep having the same conversation on Get Up, First Things First Take. Like you can put actual sports on. You can put more basketball on. You can highlight more female programs. It's like they're just chasing the money. The football money is going to be there.
the money is always going to be there too. They don't even have to chase it.
Yeah,
You
just
know,
put. You can
and-
put anything you want on TV.
right. And
Put
Big
all
12
these conferences. Don't cut them out. Put them on.
and Big 12 stop playing. Get Memphis and Tulane in there, man. But of course, before we close it out, saying just some random 2-5-isms going on. You know what I mean? Some notes that I took and just want to share with the world.
Real quick, I got a note. I just want to.
Okay, go ahead.
Philly is 2-11.
They are. Well, we can talk about that in a second.
Oh my God, that's it. That's. I was just like.
Well, you had your star player miss the first 10 games of the season. Paul George missed the first 6 or 7 games. Maxey has missed the last 6 or 7
I can't
games.
believe they signed a shorter version of Embiid.
You know what I mean? That's what I said when they made the deal. I was like, they got too much going on and they're relying on injured players. So, that's why I don't believe in them, But taking it from the top, South Carolina beat Missouri on Saturday. That was the first time in school history that they beat 3 ranked teams consecutively. So shout out to the Gamecocks, Cockvember. Saying Cocktober's over, it's Cockvember. Saying Navy, we talked about that earlier, how Navy wasn't as good as we thought they were.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to get shut out by Tulane.
Yeah, they just kind of keep proving it.
Auburn. Remember earlier, I picked Auburn. I said Auburn over Texas A&M this weekend. This is Auburn's problem. They need 2 more wins to get to a bowl. They got A&M and at Bama. So, good luck.
Now, Alabama, the state of Alabama and the surrounding states, probably going to give you the best football players available. You should always have a winning program when you coach at Auburn. There's no reason for you. There's no reason for you to not walk into the season like we got 8 and 4 possibles every year in your 12-game schedule.
Right.
You should have 8 ace of spade on down for sure when you get your cards.
Yeah. And then we got some big ones this week in the Big 12. I mentioned earlier, BYU at Arizona State, Colorado at Kansas at Arrowhead. So coaching news real quick. So Dave Aranda, got the blessing, the vote of confidence, so he'll be at Baylor next year. Neil Brown, not so much at West Virginia. You better beat UCF this weekend. But for some coaches that are not lucky, Stan Drayton, fired after a win. Tom Herman, fired. You remember Tom Herman? Remember he was coaching Houston, beat Oklahoma? Yeah, ended up at Texas. You know what? So, on that note, how about this, Mr. Logical? There are 4 teams in FBS whose mascot is the owl. All 4 of them fired their coach in season this year. All 4 of them. South Alabama hands Louisiana their first Sun Belt loss, so the West is not won just yet. So Florida State fans, we found out the hard way. Brock Glenn is not the answer. I do like Cromenhawk, but a lot of Florida State fans were talking about how we wish we had Tate Rodemaker this year. Well, let me tell you what Tate Rodemaker is up to. Tate Rodemaker is going 6 for 15 for 63 yards with an interception, losing 58-3 to Texas State. On the season, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. It probably would have been the same if we had Tate Rodemaker.
We got to pause on this. We get. How is this football team 1-9?
Florida State?
How do you retain your coach?
Because he went 13-0 the year prior.
I don't give it. Like, if you went 13-0, 1-9, hey, I get you have a down year. But where's the promise? Like, if
the transfer portal.
Everybody's been married and been in a relationship, right?
Right.
You can have a rough year. But if you don't have a week in the year where it's like, we had a good week, or you don't have a couple of months out of 12 where it was like, yo, we had a good time this summer. The kids were out of school from May to August. We had a good run. If every single month you just sitting in your car, just like, I gotta go in this house. I gotta do it. Like that, it's not working. You can't go to New Year's.
The transfer portal.
You can't go into New Year's with your cocktail
all I gotta
on,
say is
your tuxedo, watching the ball drop in New York City, knowing the year you just had, and you had nothing good come of it.
Hey,
that shit is over.
I would like to think that Florida State is going to beat FCS Charleston Southern this weekend.
Yo, you know what the thing is? There's no evidence to support that.
I know, but hold up. I was going to give you something though. I got a tidbit for you here. But when I thought about that, I was like, well, damn, Mike Norvell did lose to FCS Jacksonville State just 2 or 3 years ago. Jacksonville State is now FBS and about to probably win CUSA, by the way. But still, they were FCS at the time that they beat Mike Norvell on the last play of the game. So just saying. Shout out to our guy, Bronco.
29 is not any better.
Shout out to our guy, Bronco Mendenhall. Took one of the worst jobs in the country at New Mexico, and all he did was beat top 25 Washington State this past weekend. Washington State still ranked 25 in the AP poll, but they're not in this week's college football playoff rankings. So then Nebraska, we've been talking about them a little bit this year. 4-21 in their last 25 one-score games. That's not even the worst part. They haven't made a bowl game since 2017, right around the same time the Steelers won their last playoff game. But
We need that information.
Nebraska has also lost 9 straight games when they had a chance to clinch a bowl. So they finished with Wisconsin and Iowa. Good luck, Nebraska.
Matt Rule had a lot to say earlier this year about Colorado, and like
hey, they beat Colorado.
Yeah, that looks good now.
28-10, right? Purdue, the Boilermakers, right? You formerly known as the Spoiler Makers, now just known as shit. So this year they had the tough schedule, right? They played Oregon. They played Notre Dame. They played Ohio State. They played Penn State. The only one of those games that was on the road was the Ohio State game. They lost those 4 games by a combined 195-17, to include getting shut out by both Oregon and Ohio State.
Now, so when you were talking about getting rid of like some of these G5 schools, I know this is not a realistic thing, but soccer in Europe does it, the whole relegation thing. I think if you are FSU or Purdue and you go 1-9, 2-10, I think for a year you should swap with the nearest Conference USA or G5 school for that year.
I'm fine with that.
Indiana, so Purdue's in Indiana.
You gotta let Northern Illinois in since they beat Notre Dame.
Northern Illinois, or like maybe a team from Ohio because they border each other, but like something regionally.
Yeah.
So Florida State, I don't know.
You got UFF, South Florida.
South Florida, they get to be in the ACC for a year.
Yeah.
They get 15% of your money. You still get the 85%, but they get a nice little chunk of change, and you figure out how to get your program back on track, and then you get to come back.
No, I got you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it is what it is. Like, I would love to see that. That's one of the things I love about soccer. But it just is
you're not competing at 1-9. At 1-9 on an even playing field. Like, you have the same rules. You have the same recruiting rules. You have, depends on what conference you're in, you're getting a large chunk of the money. So Purdue's getting the same cut as Ohio State. Granted, Ohio State gets a lot of other stuff, and they're a bigger brand. But as far as like enough money to field a quality football team, you're getting that for sure.
Right.
You wasted that money. You
did.
Squandered that money. You're getting audited. You're getting relegated. We want to know, how is it that you couldn't field? And I get it. Maybe some guys get hurt, but you get 83 scholarships. That's enough for.
You got more talent than
you. You got 4 full offenses, 4 separate ones, and 3.5 defenses on your one roster.
They got more talent than everybody that they've lost to besides Miami and maybe Clemson. You know what I mean? But, some more coaching fires. I feel bad because I went to the Alamo Dome on Friday to watch UTSA work all over North Texas. Little did I know I would wake up the next day and North Texas defensive coordinator Matt Capone got fired after that game. Don Brown fired at UMass, a school that probably should be on that list of schools that should not be FBS. The last time UMass had a winning season in football?
Was it in the 2000s?
It was in the 2000s.
2011.
It was 2010 when they were still FCS, by the way.
Okay.
That's their last winning season. I brought up Tom Herman. He's out, and so. Oh, and also Biff Poogie fired.
Fired off the name alone.
He got fired yesterday at Charlotte. So, Mr. Logical, before we get out of here, one last pop quiz. So I mentioned everybody, the 4 schools that have owls as their mascot, fired their coaches during the season this year. What are the chances of that? Can you name those 4 schools?
Temple.
1.
Uh, give me a region.
The state I'm in. There's enough teams here that ain't a good enough clue.
Rice.
Correct.
Um,
And then the other 2 are in the southeast.
UAV. Are they
No,
Owls?
no, they're the Blazers with a dragon mascot. Kind of creative, I guess.
Yeah, the Blaze. I can't think of anything right now.
Florida Atlantic.
FAU. Yep. I just said them too.
Yep.
I think about the helmet. Yeah.
Yep. And then the one that you wouldn't have got anyway, because this is their first year as a FBS team.
And they fired their coach.
Kennesaw State. Down in Kennesaw, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta.
So teams are moving up to, Division I FBS level to try to chase some of this cash, but
you know what's crazy though? They only won 1 game. I believe they're 1-9. Their 1 win was against Liberty.
that was the how the hell that they. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and Liberty almost lost to UMass this weekend, beat them by 1 point in overtime. So go figure. But and oh yeah, last thing I forgot to say this. I didn't have it in my notes, but you know what, Western Kentucky, you need a foot in your ass. You know what I'm saying? First place on the line, and you lose 12-7 to Louisiana Tech.
That honestly, when I see scores like that, I think to myself, there's a disconnect or a panic in the coaching staff. It's like, yeah, there are easy plays out there that move the ball for you every drive.
Mm-hmm.
There's a disconnect between like the calmness necessary and the fortitude necessary going forward, because if you got the 1 touchdown, something worked.
Yeah.
You should be able to get a couple, especially when you are the favorite or you're like a good team, or like BYU losing 17-13 is like, just lean on your offensive line. Like, you know what? We're going to run the ball 12 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the coach, grabs the offensive line coach and the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator. They get in the huddle and you grab all those young men by their face masks. Like, listen, you've been getting tossed around all game long. I'm going to give you an opportunity. We're going 2 tight ends, single back, and we're running this shit down the middle of the field.
Right.
I don't want to see you get beat on any rep. Like, that has to be like the thing. Like, instead of like, oh, we're gonna don't get cute. Just you guys are 300 pounds. You're 22 years old. Like, I'm gonna look up the average age of BYU real quick, but it's like you shouldn't. Like, I'm not riding for BYU, but I want the chaos in the committee. I want that part of it. So I'm rooting for teams that I just like I was rooting for Colorado against Utah because I want to see other teams being represented in the playoffs, because I don't want to just see 4 SEC schools, 3 ACC schools, and 4 Big Ten schools. It's like who wants to see Ohio State play Penn State again?
Right.
Like, I don't want.
You know why?
I want the chaos, but I'm just like,
you know why CUSA ain't getting no money?
Why is that?
Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, Sam Houston, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, Florida International, Middle Tennessee, UTEP, New Mexico State, Kennesaw State. That just sounds nasty.
Listen, you play this on your schedule.
And UTEP is leaving to go to the Mountain West, so there's
21, that. The average age of 2024 BYU football team is 21.4 years. Players typically range from 18 to 23 years old, which includes traditional 4-year eligible. But they have like grown men on that team.
I know. You know what I'm saying?
Their players
With the
average
BYU at quarterback.
attitude.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But Western Kentucky 1 game out of first place, and they play first place Jacksonville State to close out the season. Mr. Logical, where's Jacksonville State?
Florida.
That would normally be a good guess. But they're in Alabama. On that note, folks, and that's the team that beat Florida State that I was talking about. You know, thank you for joining us. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. We'll be back on Friday with picks, and more picks. We love you. Peace.